What is your secret to like network and connect with people, like what you've experienced over your life and career in athletics?
It's a great question. It developed over the years. The biggest thing, I love people. It's kind of like walking up to a dog. You know what I mean? Like, a dog senses if you like them, you don't like them, or they're growling, or they're. I'm an animal lover, so I got pets around me all the time. You're petting them. I'm just
Yeah.
like a big bear. Walk up and you got a friendly face and you do stuff like that. But just the magnitude, and if I had one thing that separated me from everybody else was I had good relationships right across the board. You know what I mean? And you talk about that from my wife. We've been together for 38 years, 3 kids. Now we'll have 5 grandkids pretty soon here, and we got the best relationship in the world. And it doesn't matter if it's my wife. Like I told you about who recruited me to Simon Fraser, Nick Kaniski, still my best buddy. Told me this morning.
Well, welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. I have Bob Molle here on the line. We're super pumped to have him, and you hear his story and his expertise in leadership and building teams as an author. He is a speaker. He is a dad, a husband, father. Like, he's a well-known guy in this space as, a past Olympian, the Grey Cup, champion 2 times. Like, he's a well-known guy in this space and consultant. You're going to hear his story. Before we jump into that, I just want to give you guys a free gift. There's a training. Many leaders want to build an online brand and they want to have more leads and revenue. They want to be a consultant or a coach, and they're trying to figure out how to do it. I have a full training down below to help you out to be on your journey to do that. So check that out in the show notes. Bob, super pumped that you're here and you're going to speak to us. Tell us a little bit about, like, what is high performance? What does that look like with all the years of being a consultant, Olympian, a champion, writing the books on it, speaking about it? What is that high performance? What does that look like for
It
you?
depends when you ask me that question. It would involve, Nathan, how many different times. According to Canada Wrestling, when I had to be ranked, it was high performance was really a top tier athlete and for ours was called an A card, top 5 in the world in wrestling. So that's where
Wow.
I could get the amount of funding so I didn't have to work in the summer. That was their initial idea. And I placed 5th in the world at 20 years old in Kiev in the world championships. And that gave me funding, gave me everything, tuition, even though I was paid that with football and wrestling. That's what high performance initially made for me was not even close. So was I top 5 in the world so I could qualify for the Olympics? That was my definition. Then as it went along, I think it changed throughout my whole career. I'm 62 now, and I think that it's even changed now depending on what field I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I can imagine over the years you have different perspectives or different seasons of what that looks like, especially being a father too. And there's different downsides or different seasons that you have downshifts in a way that allow you to kind of think about life and perspective and what's important to you. With all the success that you have, tell us a little bit about how you help people, how you serve people, so they get some context of that.
Well, that's a loaded question too. Depends on that, but actually goes back to how do I serve people right now? The biggest thing. This is actually a pretty funny story. How I got into the consulting business because I was working with a big company at the time, and I was director of sales for them at the time. It's actually a big U.S. company called Ceridian at the time, and out of Minneapolis was their head office, and I ran their sales force across Canada. And I come home. We have 3 kids. I'm trying to do triathlons, trying to do this, trying to fit more into the day all the time. And my wife looked at me, and I'd come back and we'd just get the kids together. My phone would be ringing, 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 ringing. She goes, "Who calls you all day, all night, this, that?" And I said, "People are asking for advice." And this is John and my buddy Susan, this, that, that. And it got so overloaded. Weekends, I was on calls all the time. She goes, "Do you not understand?" This is exactly what she looked at me, gave me the dirty look because I was on calls all night. Just as soon as I get the kids to bed, I'd be on calls, another 10 calls in. She goes, "It's called consulting. Guess what you're doing? You're giving your business away free. Why don't you just open up your own business?" And these people were all calling you for advice and all that. That's how it started. It was hilarious. And
Wow.
that's where I started. I was just helping people. And I go, "Hey, what do you do with that?" "Well, I'll do this, do this, do this." And just like picking people, that's mostly what I do right now. So how do I serve people? It's public speaking. Biggest thing I do is form relationships with people. I'm just being very candid with you. And
Yeah.
it's kind of the Pareto principle, 80-20 rule. 80% of my success is all through relationships, like 100%
Mm.
referrals, everything. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
the best way, I love building teams together and high performance teams, whether it's a sales force or anything else, how to put it together. You still can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit. You need good people, right? And
Hmm.
I kind of analyze. I got my own little way of analyzing personalities and that, and been doing it for over 20 years and put teams together. Got good references, so it's like a fun. It's like it's like a fun game. You know what I mean? I can't be competitive in football and wrestling anymore, so you just transfer, Nathan, that competitiveness into, okay, this company's got this problem. Okay, it's kind of like a chess match, right? You put the right people in the team, and
Yeah.
guess what happens, right?
Well, going to the origin story of all the success that you've had over your journey, is this like an upbringing where your parents were really ambitious, or was this like a wiring that God gave you to be just ambitious and have this drive to achieve?
That's a loaded
How was
story.
this forged?
Yeah, no. Well, my parents, dad grew up in the prairies. Actually, we're stateside. My ancestry comes from the states, Minnesota and Wisconsin. When land moved up in the 1800s, late 1800s, it opened up in Canada. If you homesteaded, it was free. So they kind of
Mm,
migrated up into Canada from Minnesota and Wisconsin, the other side of our families, in the 1800s, and then landed. That's where that. So that's kind of my family. My dad was a cop, and my mom was a nurse, but they weren't like totally driven people. They're both sports minded. Dad played football,
mm.
baseball, all the sports and stuff like that, but not even close to as competitive as I was. The unfortunate part of that, well, depends if you're having a conversation with my mom. She was a sweetheart, right? And there's four big boys. I'm like the midget of the family, and there's 6'6", another 6'6". I'm 6'4", and a brother 6'3". They're all played,
Wow.
professional sports or something like that. But mom would say, you know what? If there's ever a disagreement and there's a fight going on, it's Bob and that person, Bob and that son, Bob and that. There was just like, if there was a competition, I'm
You're in the
in. You know
middle
what I
of it.
mean? She said I was totally
Yeah.
wired, totally different from all the other kids. She knew it from like right now. It's like, let's go.
When did you start realizing that?
I don't know if I didn't. This is kind of a sick story, but it's a true story. What really motivated me the most, this is crazy, but it's true. At high school, I was a pretty good athlete, trained, and obviously I'm not training full time. Your weights were just coming into stuff like that. But I was obsessed with training. And this is exact. I remember the day it happened. High school sports. We had a pretty good football team. We won the provincial championship, would be kind of like your state championship, I guess. And with that, pretty good wrestler. And even in high school, won city provincials, and I came third in Canada uh, at heavyweight. And I was only 210 pounds, and I played high level hockey, which was called AAA hockey at the time too. So I was playing all three sports. Had won provincials in that, provincials in wrestling and that. And then they made an announcement the last day of school. No shit. I remember. I thought I was going to be athlete of the year, right, for the school. And then they made an announcement and they said there's a tie for athlete of the year. And I go, there's a lot of great athletes in our school. And it was a tie, and it was two other people. It wasn't me. And I remember to the T.
Oh.
There's an old saying, Nathan, no evolution without shock. I got shocked right
Mm.
there. And I wasn't a high school athlete of the year. The other two, don't get me wrong, well deserving guys, but I thought I was a no brainer. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
I wasn't. I remember walking out of the school, put my head down, and I said, "That'll never happen to me as long as I live." I remember to a T walking out of that gymnasium and saying, "That will never happen to me again."
How old were you? How
17.
old were you? Man, I mean, sometimes those are line in the sand moments. Like that, if we looked at that, but could have been pretty like a pivotal moment for you of like the downside of it, but then it accelerated that growth than just thinking that you just had it. It's like now you had to work on it. What was that then progression from there after 17? What did that drive give you?
Well, I said, here's how much I was loved, because I sent like letters to every university trying to get a scholarship stateside, right, for wrestling, football, all the above, and you know this many answers. You know what I mean? And the one I really wanted to go to was at the time, Oregon State was kind of West Coast. It was the Pac-12 or Pac-10 champion back then. You know what I mean? Always for wrestling. They had a
Mm-hmm.
dominant wrestling program. And I was just looking at West Coast. I looked at Oklahoma State. I looked at, everybody, but no one responded back to me. No one, not a sniff, right? So that was kind of, another shot on me. And I just went, okay, how am I going to recover from this? No one wants me, kind of not being loved. And just by chance, there was a Western Canada Open wrestling tournament in Simon Fraser University. And you're probably familiar with it because it's the only NCAA 2A university outside of the United States, right? And they competed 100% in the States. And I went out there for this tournament, and it was the Western Canada Open or something like that. And they had two heavyweights, and I had won the semis and won the final. I beat them both and won the tournament. And then their head coach walked up to me and said, "Hey, you interested in going to school?" I said, "Yeah, I am." There's not a single person that'll take me. And I got offered a scholarship right there. And I said, "Hey, I'd like to play football too." And the thing just blossomed from there. And my college roommate was from one of the guys I beat. He was from Blaine, Washington. He's still my buddy. I call him
Yeah.
every morning. And been lifelong pals and that. And he went to the shower, started recruiting me. And we started talking about, "Hey, why don't you come out here and you and I can train together." And I never got rid of the guy. 40, 50 years later, we've been together.
That's awesome. I mean, sometimes life just happens like
Yeah.
that. Like your wife telling you, "Hey, you should do consulting," and you're like, "Hey, might as well." Like, sounds like just life has ended up happening to you in some ways of some rejection, but then also just making it happen by your accomplishments. What is that like now? Like when you got into the Olympics side of things, tell us about like the mindset shift or the grit and the grind that you had to really kind of dedicate yourself to win, or even the Grey Cup championship. What had to shift your way for the listeners here to kind of understand like, hey, I'm a high achiever, like an athlete, I'm a go getter, to transition then into like the focus of like relenting success and the grit and the grind that it took to make that happen.
I think two stories that what I would think of first come to mind. Like once I didn't know how good I was and how good I could be. You know what I mean? Because you're at the time when you win the Western Canadas at 18, you think, "Man, I'd like to win the nationals. That would be, even under 20. You know what I mean?" So it kind of opened up for there. But at 20, I've already won the nationals. Now I wanted to see how I'm going to do on a world stage, right? And so
Mm.
they'd already put me in. I'm only like what they call it a junior because you're under 20. I'm already at the world championships and I'm wrestling super heavyweight. Back then there was no weight limit. You had, the 400 pounders, the 350, the 280, you had everything, every steroided guy. You had just everything. And once I placed fifth in the world, at 20, I kind of knew where I sat. You know what I mean? And I
Mm.
had an idea, and I was going to go, okay, what's next at 21? The Olympics are coming. I've already placed the weight at it's qualified because only top 14 or top 16 make it to the Olympics, and that kind of gave me a huge opening, a thought process in my brain that, man, if I just push up, I need to get a medal, right? And
Mm-hmm.
a whole bunch of crazy things happened in between that too for me to go to the medal because the guy I lost to, you're too young probably, but the guy I lost to in the Olympic final was a guy named Bruce Baumgartner. And he was the
Okay.
first ever world, anywhere in the world, that won 4 Olympic medals in wrestling. It's never been done before. So we won
Hmm.
84, 88, silver, gold again in 92, then 96 again. And I knew Bruce because I lost him in the World Championships, lost him in the World Cup. You know what I mean? And he
Yeah.
was the number one guy for the United States, but I'd wrestled him in so many tournaments. I'm sitting in a dorm, Nathan, in little apartment complex, not a dorm, but you know what I'm saying, just a miniature little thing on campus where I'm at.
Yeah.
Get a phone call out of the blue, and I'd actually helped them out one time. I think it was a big tournament. We're in trying to remember where we were at the time. And he drew, back then, we didn't call it Russia, we called it Soviet Union, right?
Hmm.
all one big country. And he drew the guy right off the bat. And I drew the East German. And he looked at it, and I just walked over to him, and just, we kind of obviously knew each other because we wrestled each other, could speak English. And I said, "Hey, you got Soviet Union. Would it help if I could help you warm up? Because it's tough to get a good body, do this stuff so you can get good and warm, and you don't have a good training partners and stuff like that." And he goes, "That'd be great. Can I meet you here, Bob, in another 30 minutes to warm up before my match?" I said, "No problem." We were talking about stuff, different warm. "Bob, can you give me this? Give me this. Bob, can you do this?" "Yeah." Nah. And then he returned the olive branch to me like 20 minutes later. He goes, "You got the East German. He's, da 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 da." He said, "Can I help you warm up?" And we started a relationship. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
next thing I know, after the World Championships, I get a phone call. I'm ranked fifth. He's the number one ranked guy in the world. He goes, "Bob, I get all this money from Wrestling USA. We get sponsorship from Walgreens and all that." He says, "But I can't use the money. I can't buy clothes and stuff. I got to use it for training dollars." He goes, "I want you to be my training dollars. Do you want to fly down? I'm the assistant coach at Oklahoma State University. How about if I fly you down? I'll rent you a house. I got all the food. My wife's an athletic trainer. We got access to all that. Let's pick a couple other guys. How about you and I get ready for the Olympics together?" I'm just like,
Wow.
what's the value of a good relationship? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
training with the number one guy in the world, but 2 times a day for months on end. At Oklahoma State University back then was the top wrestling university, and back to what we originally talked about, good relationships. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
him and I, and the weirdest thing is, him and I ended up in the Olympic final, and he beats me up one more time, the bastard. If he would have had a nice relationship, he would have let me win one of them. Eh?
Yeah. Bob, you're this guy that stands out to me as just this magnet of a personality that everybody wants to be around and have conversation with. Is that something that you've had to really learn, or was it just natural? Or or what is your secret to like network and connect with people, like what you've experienced over your life and career and athletics?
It's a great question. It developed over the years. The biggest thing, I love people. It's kind of like walking up to a dog. You know what I mean? Like, a dog senses if you like them or you don't like them, or they're growling, or they're. I'm an animal lover, so I got pets around me all the time. You're petting them. I'm just
Yeah.
like a big bear. Walk up and you got a friendly face and you do stuff like that. But just the magnitude, and if I had one thing that separated me from everybody else, was I had good relationships right across the board. You know what I mean? And you talk
Yeah.
about that from my wife. We've been together for 38 years, 3 kids. Now we'll have 5 grandkids pretty soon here. And we got the best relationship in the world. And it doesn't matter if it's my wife, like I told you about, who recruited me to Simon Fraser. Nick Kaniski, still my best buddy. Phoned me this morning again. He's out at Palm
Yeah.
Springs now, but just good relationships. And it's opened so many doors for me. And I love people, love
Hmm.
learning, you know what I mean? I got a zest for life. I got, I love the combination of getting to know new people, what makes them tick, how they respond, how they wrestle, how everything, So I think there was always a thirst for it. And I enjoyed meeting people. I found fun meeting people. So I was never
Mm.
scared to open up my hand and just go, "Hey, my name's Bob. I'm sorry, your name is," boom. I could
Yeah.
walk into a steam room like I was working out when you were texting me this morning. You know what I mean? I just go to the gym every day. I bike there, know everybody, and I can circle the whole thing. And Tom, Frank, Susan, how you doing today? You know what I mean? And just good energy. There's an old saying I study in Eastern philosophy: energy's
Mm.
never lost; it's only transferred. And I remember one of my mentors taught me about energy. He says, "Are you bringing good energy to the situation or taking it away? What are you doing?" I like to
Yeah.
energize, and energy is a big thing about an Eastern philosophy.
How do you cultivate those relationships? Because oftentimes, especially being in the digital age, Bob, I mean, everybody is surface level, right? And there's not deep relationships. Do you have like a list, or do you have like people in your mind like, hey, I got to call him up, like your buddy Nick, that you just stay in touch? How do you cultivate that, CRM or networking list or connections of stuff? What's your techniques or thoughts behind
I
that?
don't know if it's a technique, but I prioritize it. People, they say prioritize things in their life, and you do what
Yeah.
you prioritize. What are your goals, and what you think you become, right? And my number one
Mm.
goal is just being candid with you. I'll just lay it out. Like I'm not, I can't have four because I can't remember that many. I'm too old, so I only have three, right? But number one's my health first, because I can't do anything if I don't have my health. Like standard, like I'm
Right.
62, coming 63. Like my whole old line that I used to play pro football with, they're all my fullback, my running back. They're all dead. You know, I got one guy left. You know what I mean? I
Mm.
prioritize my health. I get out, I bike everywhere. I don't, I got a bike in every city and major city across Canada where I got clients. Get off and I bike and go to the gym every day. I swim every day. I go to steam every day. Do my core, just part of my life. It helps my brain. So
Hmm.
my health is number one, because like if I didn't have a health, I can't do all those other things, or I can't even care for my family, right? Support them. If I
Sure.
don't have my health, and they go, "Hey, Dad's in the hospital." Yeah, well, what? He's a burden on our family. He's not helping it, right? So I
Mm.
prioritize that. My number two is actually relationships. Right in my goals. I own that. I pip out my watch and stuff like that. And then I go, who do I need to prioritize? So it's always been a priority for me, because all my growth has been through good relationships, all my referrals for companies, all that. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
find that, and then we talked about the other one. What's my energy level like, right? Well, I transfer
Hmm.
energy, right? Make it important, right? And I got
Yeah.
obviously the business side of that, which flows into my energy and stuff like that. But I got kind of three habits, you know what I mean, that I kind of stay always, stay true to them. Pretty simple, but they know who I am, what I'm about. You know what I mean? No surprise,
Yeah.
good integrity. You know what I mean? And trust, right? It's,
Yeah.
come on, who's kidding who? I married a judge, and so
Did you really?
how
Wow.
many arguments do you think I win?
Yeah, I can imagine the household conversations there about that.
Everything's about trust with our relationship.
And 35 years later, which most relationships seem to be not as well as put together as yours, what's the secret to a strong, healthy marriage there?
Well, yeah, you say 35. That's most. Unfortunately, that's most of my pro football players. That's how many wives they had. You know what I mean? Uh,
Right?
I've been in love. Good, cool thing about that. I'd say number one. If she, this would be an interesting call for if I hit her on the thing, nailed her in court, and said, "Hey, honey, what do you think the number one reason you hang out with this crazy guy for?" And I think we enjoy each other's company. We have fun, right? And we giggle all the time. We kind of come back and kibitz about stuff. And she flies out. She lives in a city called Calgary. Flies out on the weekends out to Victoria, and we got a couple acres out here. She likes to roam around gardening, stuff like that, and go for walks and make some meals, and we giggle. And I'd say
Yeah.
laughter, number one thing. We giggle about all kinds of stuff. We don't spend any time fighting. If the odd time you get in a dispute or
Hmm.
something, but that hasn't happened in I don't know how many years. But we enjoy each other's time. We just giggle. You know what I mean? And when we got
Yeah.
grandkids, I said, like, we're getting in our 60s, and she'll never retire. She said, I said, what do you want? You know what I mean? I always ask what they want. You know what I mean? It's not, a lot of people push their agenda on someone else. I think it's, having a relationship is more giving than, a lot of people want to take. And I kind of flip it on its head and go, I always ask my wife first thing, she knows it. I've been doing it for how many years? Hey, what are the top three things you want this morning? Can you get my coffee for me,
Mm.
sweetie? And can we go for a walk today? And can we go grocery, da da da? Or you know what I mean? Or can we clean up the
Hmm.
backyard? And what are your top three? You knock off your top three by your wish list with your wife. You're an angel.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Oh,
simplicity
great
again. I
point.
didn't even give
Love
you
it.
four because I couldn't remember fours. But you know what I mean? She knows I'm going to walk in with her coffee every morning, do this when she's in town, and it's pretty easy date. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I find that I think we get more in love every year. Right? We just giggle, right?
Yeah. I've been married for 13 years now, and I was writing in my journal the other day, and I said, as time gets on, as hard as it's been, it's getting our relationships getting sweeter.
Well, we'll have
And
this
I was
conversation
thinking,
because I thought I heard you had three.
I have three
That's what I
kids. I
meant.
was just,
I had three, but now we got
yeah.
grandkids. Then you go full circle, right? And then it's like my daughter in Australia. We had there in another month. She's having her third kid. I just grabbed the two. She goes, Dad, there's no one in the world that I can grab, sleep in my house. You let me sleep in because she's eight
Hmm.
months pregnant. And you'll grab my kids first thing in the morning. Mind you, I go to bed at like 6 o'clock at night there so I can get up with the kids at 4. You know what I mean? Whatever. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you help. Are you there to support? You know what I mean? or are you there taking or a giver, right? I kind of see the world black and white. A lot of people don't see it that way. They always want, oh, serve me this, that. No, you're a servant, right? Really, you're there to help,
Yeah,
right? And I look
that's
at the
right.
world different than most people. And my daughter knows that I'm going to grab the kids, I'm going to change their diapers, I'm going to, feed them, and I'll get them out of the house so they're not screaming. And I'll take the dog, and then we're out for 2 hours in the park. And my daughter, when you're 8 months pregnant, you know how valuable sleep is. You got three kids. You know
Yes.
what I'm saying? And she goes,
Yeah.
I couldn't pay somebody to do what you do. You know what I mean? Like she does that. Don't worry about it. You know what I
That's
mean? Got
that's
your back.
awesome.
You know what I mean? But you were there for support.
Yeah.
So you talk about service. I think it's kind of, I think that was the biggest thing my parents instilled in me is my dad was a cop. He told me as a young kid, we simple things like you big man. And he used to say, and we were the big kids in the block. Well, everywhere. We were pretty big kids and athletic. He goes, the old, maybe it was the policeman in him. He just said, remember, you're going to be a big kid. Your job is to serve and protect. He used to tell us that.
Wow.
So, neighbor, he's an old guy. You need to get up in the morning and shovel his walk because he can't do it. You know what I mean? Make sure you cut their lawn. You got to do this. And dad would give us chores all along the block that we had to do. Your job is to serve and protect. Anybody bullies one of the kids, your job is to clean it up.
Wow. I love that. I mean, he enforced and infused and installed an identity that you've had, and it's been super successful for you all
Yeah,
these
serve and
years.
protect. It was pretty simple. So you talk about, the values you brought up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's lost on the world, Bob. I feel
A
like
lot
it's
of people are
lost.
here most of the time. They don't even communicate. So you got
Yeah.
earbuds in, you got that. I'll walk in, meet everybody in the gym. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let me ask you this one. I mean, being an athlete, being a business owner, being a consultant, there's a part of a high achiever that's they get frustrated because they're in their obsessed world of accomplishing things, and then they lose sight of what's really important with their health and their family and their loved ones, or the things that are important to them. And we get bogged down in this world where it's like you cannot not think about how did you do that, where you're able to like disconnect the complications of life and career and really focus on your relationship with your wife and your kids, and that balance and that tenderhearted service that you portray.
Uh, I think great question. I think it's loaded because of parents. Parents were, uh, well, we didn't have a lot of money. Four big kids ate the house out of home, and dad was simple man, simple means, right? And integrity was everything with my dad. He was an honest cop, and actually killed him, I think, in the end because he was internal affairs. They moved him to, right. And so any
Mm,
cops wrongdoing, and you're the bad guy
sure.
again. Dad always instilled in us that from day one, always put honesty and integrity, and what's your value of your word, right? Your words got to be
Yeah.
gospel. So Dad instilled stuff like that. Like if you say you're going to be there, like a farmer boy, we used to help out farms, and people were short hired hands and stuff. Said if you're going to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning, the guy said you're going to do this, you're going to chuck bales, you'd be there at 10 to 6, you know what I mean? Before anybody that.
Yeah.
Honor, on time, every time, right? And then it becomes trust. They know you're going to be there on time, every time. And, what's your value system, right? So dad taught us a
Hmm.
lot of those things that were instilled on it, and that kind of were building blocks for us to go forward with, you know what I mean? I was just so aggressive and
Yeah.
so competitive. I was kind of like, what are the rules? How do I win? Kind of thing, right?
Well, let me ask you this: you now build teams for
Correct.
companies, and you speak on stages, you travel quite a bit with your family, you've written books. Like, what are the keys for someone that's needing to hire someone, and why should they hire someone? I think there's entrepreneurs that think they can do it all themselves, for one, and they know they need the help and they need to do it. They need to get that help. And then they've tried to hire people and they've really struggled with it because they hire the wrong people, right? And then they hire someone like you to say, "Hey, I need this person," and you have your science of how you do that. talk to us about
Go
like
ahead.
the reasons why should someone start it and to hire people, and then what are the best practices to hire someone?
It's a great question, especially in the entrepreneurial world, and especially growth. And most entrepreneurs, and just bringing it down, maybe I'm simplifying it too much, but they might be good at a couple things, right? We're not all good at everything. You know what I mean? My wife's a judge. She was a lawyer in this, that. I don't do legal. I don't do accounting. I don't do, you know what I mean? I specialize in what
Hmm.
I'm good at, right? And it's just like wrestling. Guess what? You know what? Let's get it down to the thing. I remember Bruce Baumgartner coming down and doing video. We didn't even have internet back then, but he had VHS tapes on every single person in the world that we could possibly wrestle in the Olympic. Here's Turkey, here's Iran, here's this, here's it. We went through it, and guess all we did? Top three moves we're going to do on every person. That's it. What are our top three? There's a million moves,
Mm.
oldest sport in the world, right? And we're only doing three moves on each person. And so it's simplified. What do you do best, right? And most people think they can hire, they understand it. They don't really understand it. They're not very good at hiring people, analyzing that. I do that for a living, right? And
Mm.
so you do what you do well. You know what I mean? Focus on those things. The other
Yeah.
things, you're not a lawyer. Don't get involved in legal stuff. You know what I mean? You're not an accountant. Don't that. Leave it to the people that specialize in it. So I've had the mousetrap. This is a cool story, actually. I got hired by actually a wrestler. He was on our 2012 Olympic team, and he had the
Mm.
fastest growing company in Canada. It was called Skip the Dishes, food delivery like Uber Eats, but except Skip was the biggest brand in Canada, and they were over
Mm.
1,000 employees and stuff. And they had hired me to come in and revamp the company and kind of look at what I do. In fact, they're growing so fast in Winnipeg. There were 10 different offices situated. I just bought a bike and kind of biked to all the different offices at the time, and they grew another 1,000 employees. Sold the company after a couple of years for 200 million, and on the sale they had to stay on for 1 year. And once they stayed on, they had hired me to come in and said, Bob, we can make more money on this. The best thing, we have a 1 year clause. We get paid out on stock options on the evaluation of this company in 1 year. Can you make us better? And the
Mm.
average age of these people, 26, right? And they're doubling their hiring that year, but they're going to get paid out on it. And they just brought me in, and I just go move that person there. It's kind of like you and I were talking about earlier, just the chess match. You know what I mean? It's like me walking up. I
Yeah.
coached football for 25 years. That's your quarterback. That guy there, move him to wide out. Move that guy here. This is your center. Move that guy because he moves the guard. It's just kind of like the arranger in me. You know what I mean? And I just move people
Yeah.
around, get rid of that person. That person's lies and cheats. Let's get rid of them. Like get rid of the cancer, right? And
Yeah.
we did that. They got paid out 1 year later. Evaluation came in at 2.2 billion, and they got paid out on
Wow.
that. And they were like, we're all started up another company, started up virtual bank. Now we're talking about me going back in there. You know what I mean? It's all relationships, right? But
Yeah.
getting the right people on the bus, I can't tell you. It's just like, people. I took over a wrestling team. I'm getting too many stories. You're going to get bored out of your face.
No, I'm super intrigued, Bob. This is fascinating here. I love it.
I'm drafted by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Canadian Football League, at 21, right? Just after the Olympics. So I'm already got a silver medal in the Olympics. I get drafted Pro Bowl in first round in Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Canadian Football League. I get drafted by Tampa in the States at the time. And then I turn around and I go to the Canadian Football League, and I'm there in 1 year, and the University of Manitoba fires their head coach and asks if I could do both, if I could play pro football, and after I've done practice there, race to the university and run that team. And they were terrible. They weren't even ranked in the top 25 in the country. Went to nationals, didn't even win a match. You know what I mean? They were brutal. And
Mm.
all I did, this is no lie. The next year, I took over the head coaching job at 23, I think it was, and I knew we didn't have very good talent. Like it was just brutal. And uh, every time I'd fly to a professional football game, could be in Toronto, could be in Hamilton, could be in Ottawa, and that I'd go night before. I'd get free tickets from our PR guy. Had a great relationship with them. Get their whole family there. Who their top wrestler was in that city. take them out the night before, for a dinner, meet the mom and dad, say, hey, I'm revamping the University of Manitoba, and we're looking at this. We're going to do a new team and stuff like that, and we're dead in the water, like terrible, and recruited good people in the next year. Next year we came fifth. Next year we came third after that. And then we won the national championship. And people go, oh, you're the best coach in the world. I'm an okay coach. You know what I mean? I'm not the best coach in the world, but I'm okay. But guess what I did? Recruited good talent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I brought
Yeah.
good talent in, that. And then we came second the next year, then won a national championship. Then I packed it in, right? But yeah, people look at
Yeah.
how did you do the turnaround? This is the most amazing thing. I said, no, it's getting good talent, right?
Yeah. How do you sort good talent or between like A players, B players, C players? How do you evaluate that? What are the best ways and tactics that you've found?
Well, the research shows, it's a great question, Nathan, but the research shows past performance is still your number one indicator for future performance, right? And you
Mm,
got to dig. It's like 80% of your work's got to be done beforehand. You know what I mean? Before you even start
yeah.
recruiting the kid, right? And what's his academics? Is he going to flunk out of school right away? You know what I mean? And getting the hold of
Yeah.
the principal or the kids, the parents that know him, and what kind of kid is he, right? Like, is he the kid that's going to help out your other kid? Is it the kid that's going to get his work done even though he's still tired? Is it the kid that's, you know what I mean? That's going to skip a practice
Mm,
and complain? Is the kid that's going to get injured, or is he going to fight through it and say, hey, what happened? You know what? My biggest indicator in wrestling, and I still think it's the toughest sport, obviously, but not that I've done it or anything, but I said, what happens when he's in overtime? Who wins? Because you're both dead tired, right? Now, I want to see what your
mm-hmm.
will is now to fight, because both guys are dead
Yeah.
tired. You've wrestled for 7 minutes. You could have wrestled a couple matches already that day. You know what I mean? And it's a pretty good indicator for me of going, what happens in overtime? Oh, he'll win every time in
Mm,
overtime. You know what I mean? He's going to get it's a huge telling thing. So how do I search it out there in wrestling? And I got different things that what kind of job am I looking for? Am I looking for a person that supports other people, treats other people well? You know what the most interesting thing, like simplest thing, I'll take a person out for lunch and see how they treat the waiter or waitress. If they're subordinate, they treat them like shit. Hey, I need this. I need another drink. You know what I mean? I'm just going, wow. Just little indicators that will
mm,
tell me, do they treat the person with respect? Do they treat, you know what I mean? The cashier,
yeah.
do they treat that person? Do they see the person beside? Do they help them with the chair? Do they notice other people around them? You know, so there's a whole bunch of indicators, but you got to do your research. It's all in the setup. You got to spend your time, 80% of
Mm.
it beforehand.
Is there certain hiring questions that you found that's super telling for you?
I got a few questions depending on what I'm hiring for. Well, I'm not so much the hiring,
Yeah.
I'm just evaluating the talent, right? I don't do the
Okay.
hiring, I don't do the sourcing of that. They'll bring top candidates in, but you're still the simplest one. A lot of people don't understand is past history shows what they're going to do in the future, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if they have big tight matches they lost, or tight matches do they win? You know what I mean? So what happens, right?
Yeah.
So there's little clues that I've done it for so many years that I'll just go, what happened here? What happened here? When that's their coach, their principal, whatever. I'll just go down the line. The mom and dad, what happens? Does he help out his siblings? Does he go above and beyond that? Does he stay after practice when he needs to work on something? Does he show up late? Is he on time? Everything adds up. You know what I mean? I've been doing it for so many years
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. What are the keys for success? What does that
Depends how you define
mean to
success,
you?
I guess. Eh?
Yeah. What does that mean to you though? What defines success for you?
Am I allowed to tell you what I wrote down?
I'd love to hear it.
Oh yeah, but I'm a whack job, right? Yeah, my list. This is what I put on, but I stole some of this. A good life is when you assume nothing, do more, need less, smile often, dream big, laugh a lot, and realize how lucky I am.
Hmm. That's so good, Bob. Did you write that down somewhere? Did you post that?
Did I what? I think I stole it from someone.
Is that
I call it R&D,
did you
Rob and
post that?
duplicate.
Is that something you read every day or is that like a
Yeah,
post you have on
yeah,
social
no, I
media?
wake up and read it, right? Well, you talked about it. Why am
That's
I
awesome.
doing that? Remember, we talked about energy, we talked about
Yeah.
health, relationships, right? This is my life, right?
That's so good, Bob. I'm gonna have to steal that and apply
I
that
don't need
to
anything.
my
So,
own
my
life too.
companies make good money and stuff like that. And oh, you can buy this, you can buy that. I don't need anything. I have a bike, right? I got bikes in all my different spots. What do you need when you're 62 years old? We got a couple of beautiful places. We got a beautiful family. Oh, you can buy a new car. I don't need cars. I don't need less is more,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
If I got a
Yeah.
happy family, I got
Well,
good relationships. I'm a pretty happy guy, right?
that's right. Relationships are huge. I mean, that's after everything, that's the most important
That's
thing.
what I believe in. I just kind of researched the crap out of it. You know what I mean? It's still you could Google it because I did some of my training in Harvard where I did my negotiation schools, and I I was more appealed by it at the time because I'd read an article years ago, and I think it's the oldest study in human happiness. And people always that, and it's a longitudinal study. I think over 80 years, but research shows comes down to one thing: why are people happy and unhappy? Doesn't matter how much money you make, this and that. If you got good relationships, you're happy. You got terrible relationships,
Mm,
you're not happy. And people are always after
yeah.
the dollar, but really, research shows. Come on, who's kidding who? After you got a food, the house over your head, you got some food in the fridge. All my companies
Right.
do well money wise, but it's the last thing I focus on. You kind of use the word death, and Nathan, you just said serve. All I do is serve my clients, right?
I love that. I love that, Bob. How can people follow you and connect with you further?
Well, it's funny you say that because the book just got launched 2 months ago, right? And the title of my book is called "Get Comfortable Being Uncomfortable." It's kind of all the uncomfortable things I did, that how I would grow and how I did different stuff, right? And it was
Hmm.
kind of crazy because by the time I had 21, I was only 22. I was the only person in the world to have an Olympic medal and a Grey Cup ring in Canada, right? And
Hmm.
just kind of went on from that. But the best thing is you get the book, but bobmolle.com and or getcomfortablebeinguncomfortable.com. They're both trademarks of mine. I own the trademark for that, and the book just got launched basically on Amazon about 2 months ago. So get comfortable being uncomfortable. That is kind of a crazy thing that I bought the trademark for it like 15 years ago, but the phrase has gone
Really?
viral,
Wow.
right?
It is. I'll put those links down below. I mean, you're also everywhere on social media too. So that will be good. I'll make sure to put some links down on how people connect with you further. But go buy his book. Thank you guys for listening in. Bob, super blessed to have you on the podcast here, hearing your wisdom. So glad we had the conversation insights. I hope people really enjoyed that. Again, we'll till next time with our episode. Make sure to check out that connection with Bob, get his book. Also, check out the training I have down below, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, Nathan.